Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So how many of you are brand new to Krishna consciousness? Please raise your hand. Some humble devotees. How many of you been practicing for less than 1 year? Okay. How many have read Bhagavad Gita? But everybody, huh? What about Satori? Why hasn't Satori read it?
We're working on it. We have time for the entire thing.
Well, I know a trucker who has been making some good money.
Oh, yeah, some of those.
Okay, so everybody can hear me okay? What is your name? I haven't seen you before. Josh, nice to meet you. How'd you hear about us?
Omar here, it's never made.
Oh, okay. You got some great friends, I see. Cool.
Omar and Josh came at the same time the first time, I think, when Padmanabhan Prabhu was here.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So what have you thought about your roommate becoming a saintly person?
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. I had a debate with my father-in-law once. He's a self-proclaimed atheist. And I told him, you have to have faith in the scientists. No. But we have faith in saintly persons. Yeah. So it's, the scientists always aren't saying the same thing. Year after year, they're changing. But the saintly persons, they're giving us something really profound, something deeper. So that's kind of the two paths we can go, because we're known as Anu. Anu means very small. If you think about even the way that the materialists calculate the universes, they're very vast. So we're very small. And I told him, if this is all of reality, this is about what we can comprehend. So we have to have faith. So they're having faith in the scientists who are changing. They have different opinions, right? They're not all saying the same thing. So we have faith in saintly persons. And this is something I've also been contemplating recently, is that our true friends are saintly people. People we can trust are saintly people. There's a beautiful verse, Srila Rupa Goswami, Anyabhilasita sunyam jnana karmari nabritam, that unless we have unmotivated devotional service, then we still have some tendency to be exploitative, right? So until someone's completely liberated, they're doing their activities not anymore for personal gain, or they're not like the scientists on the mental platform just speculating about reality. And those are the people that come to the level of saintliness. So those are our true friends in this world, and that's also what Krishna is advising in Bhagavad Gita. He's advising, approach saintly people. Tadvidi pranipatena priprasnena sevaya. So approach saintly people and inquire from them submissively. And what's the nature of that inquiry? Do we inquire about the weather, or what the Chicago Bulls are doing? Or we inquire about transcendence, so we inquire about Krishna. And actually, one of our primary texts of Srimad Bhagavatam is a collection of beautiful questions and answers between Maharaj Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami. So he has 7 days to live, and he's asking all these incredible questions. And what are these questions pertaining to? They're pertaining to transcendence. They're pertaining to Krishna, the supreme source of everything. So oftentimes, as things become lost in time, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, true knowledge becomes lost in time, things become a lot less diverse or colorful. That's the topic of our lecture tonight. We even see in Christianity, there is the Orthodox and Catholic Church, and a lot of the Protestant churches broke off from them. So in the Orthodox Church, there's iconography. Have any of you ever been into an Orthodox church, Orthodox Christian church? Okay, so it's very colorful. There's saints all over the walls, right? And they have a lot of the same type of rituals we have. They have incense and candles and those type of things. But as the church split off, then it became like the walls became all white, right? It's just like one white empty shell with one cross on the wall. And Jesus isn't even, picture. So this is the nature of escapism, trying to escape from a personal reality because relationships are difficult, especially in Kali Yuga. Does any of you know what the divorce rate is?
50%? 51%?
I think so. I was looking it up recently, and it's close to there. It may be higher. It depends. If that's your first marriage, second marriage, it goes up another 10-15%. So the relationships are very difficult, and so the escapist mentality is, I want to eliminate relationship, and I just want peace. But if we read the Vedic literatures, if we hear from self-realized souls, we realize that this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. And the variety we see in this world, Krishna says, all beautiful, opulent, and glorious creations spring from a spark of my splendor. So if you take a snapshot of this whole universe, all the incredible things, if you ever watched like Planet Earth, or like Life in True Color, or some of these like vivid photography or videos of up close seeing like an insect or seeing a bird. There's actually a beautiful saying in Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna is the greatest artist, right? Because everything in existence is created by Krishna. So in this text, Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the variety of birds give evidence to Krishna's masterful artistic sense. So in some way, you can say that Krishna's greatest display of art is through birds. And if you've ever seen like bird watchers or seen how colorful they are, it's pretty amazing. We have some peacocks right out here, so you can check out some of their plumes. So I think we have a turkey now too. Is that right? How's the turkey doing?
You might have some.
What is this one's name?
Sufi.
Sufi, okay. All right, Krishna. You name him after Chris? Ah, that makes sense. He doesn't have a mate.
He thought we were going to die of himself, but working out.
It's interesting because a lot of times when you watch these, maybe you've probably seen these nature documentaries, and oftentimes they're displaying their colors to find a mate. So it kind of always leads to that. These fabulous colors, and why are they doing that? To attract, or for defense purposes. So sometimes the animals blend in for defense. So, but if you just take one snapshot, if you take one section of reality, that's this material world. It's just a fraction of God's reality. All beautiful, opulent, and glorious creations spring but from a spark of my splendor. So it's just a fraction. So you take that, and that's an inverted reflection of the spiritual world. So the spiritual world then we know is more vivid. It's more alive. It's more beautiful. Everything is like waking up from a dream, right? And so this is what the saintly people who have realization are teaching. They're teaching that we have an opportunity to enter into a reality that's very vivid, that's very beautiful, that's filled with life and sentience. Everything is sentient in the spiritual world. So they're giving evidence to the spiritual world. And there's different aspects of divine reality. right? So we have everything in existence coming from the supreme divine source. And we have the energies of that source. Things become complicated in some sense, but there's unity in the fact that God has a specific purpose for us. And that purpose is ultimately unification and love, loving relationships. And so you have God's energy. This is called, you have Jiva Tattva. And this is us. We're marginal potency. You have Krishna's energetic expansions in the spiritual world, Shakti Tattva. And you have Vishnu Tattva. You have Krishna's divine, immediate expansions, planetary portions. And so ultimately, this is a great experience and experiment of love that's happening. And we're celebrating one personality today. He's named Advaitacharya. And this Advaitacharya, he's an immediate expansion of God. Because if you try to imagine, if you're the supreme source of everything, all powerful, then you would do marvelous things, right? Like even with our limited abilities, we do some pretty amazing things, right? We go on some pretty amazing adventures, right? So in the same sense, why would the all-powerful source of everything, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am adventure. Oh, and also Krishna says, of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring. So different aspects of nature can remind us of Krishna. And so this person, Advaitacharya, he was in a direct expansion of aim to inaugurate the mission of God in this age, which is the Sankirtan mission. Because in every single age, the Lord is allowing us an opportunity to realize ourselves, come closer to Him, and ultimately enter into this diverse and beautiful and vibrant spiritual dimension. And so when we speak of a life of color, of beauty, we speak more in the sense of awakening that realization of the spiritual world within us, as opposed to something external. You know, Prabhupada, he gave one definition of materialist is someone that enjoys externally, and a spiritualist is somebody that enjoys within. So this is the definition of being a spiritual person. And so we have, because of these incredible personalities, such as Advaitacharya. Advaita means non-different. So Advaita means he's non-different than the supreme source. And Acharya means he's teaching us by example the path of Bhakti Yoga, the path of the ultimate truth. So this Advaitacharya, he is ultimately revealing to us the opportunity to enter into this diverse and colorful reality of the spiritual world. So I wanted to just briefly, there was a very close associate of Sri Chaitanya. If you want to learn about this great saint Sri Chaitanya, we have teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Really good introduction to this most merciful expansion of the Lord, who is Advaita is facilitating his. So this was a close associate of the Lord, and he said, let me offer my loving obeisances to Srila Advaitacharya, who worshipped Sri Gaura with tulsi leaves, flowers, water, and loud calls of love at the shore of the Ganges, and begged him to appear. So in the previous age prior to this, the main aspect of worship was temple worship, opulent temple worship. But in this age, it's chanting the sacred names, what we were just doing previous. And this layover from the previous age is still going on. So Prabhupada said this movement runs on two tracks. One is the deity worship in the temple, and the other is the chanting. So Sri Advaitacharya, he did very simple worship to Krishna in the form of the deity. He offered these tulsi leaves and water from the Ganges. But he called out, his main practice was calling out with love for the Lord to descend. And he was, in doing so, out of his compassion, because he was feeling like people are suffering in this world. People are pursuing temporal things. And so he calling out of the mood of compassion. As our acharyas, they say there's two most important aspects of our practice. And one is jiva daya. One is compassion for the souls that are suffering here. And firstly, having compassion for our own, who we are as a soul, ourselves. We've been suffering here, right? So having compassion for ourselves and everybody else who's suffering. So jiva doya, developing this compassion for the souls to realize themselves and to stop the suffering that's going on. So that's one aspect of his mission. The other aspect is developing a taste for spiritual things, for spiritual vibration. So oftentimes what we're doing, we're praying to awaken this taste and this divine love. Because only through this taste are we going to be able to transcend these things that are making us suffer, things that are causing us to suffer. And so this is the mood that he called out for the Lord to come. So he says, let me take shelter of Srila Dvaitacharya. Attracted by his loud calls, the golden Lord of Goloka Vrindavan, who is an ocean of ecstatic love, appeared in Sri Navadvip. Let me surrender to Srila Dvaitacharya. He inspired the rising of the moon of Sri Chaitanya, who inundated the world with pure love of Godhead prema, which is even for Lord Brahman, the greatest demigods difficult to attain. Let me offer my loving obeisances to Srila Dvaitacharya, whose mercy is beyond understanding, and by whose request alone all-powerful Sri Chaitanya disappeared from this world. Let me surrender to Srila Dvaitacharya, who is not different from the form of Mahavishnu, and who Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are part, engaged in creation, maintenance, and destruction of the worlds. So this all-powerful source, he's expanding all the universes from his body, but he's also coming into this world to directly associate with us in these incredible pastimes. Let me offer my loving obeisances to Srila Dvaitacharya, who is worshipped by all and who is attained only by devotional service. It is heard in certain Vedic literature that because he is Lord Shiva's shelter, he has a name and glory like Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is also said to be one of the most merciful aspects of the Lord coming into this world. And it is said in the Bhagavatam that the greatest evidence of wonderful qualities is when somebody sacrifices for the benefit of others. And Lord Shiva, towards the beginning of the creation with the demigods, he for the sake of liberating the demons and demigods from this poison that came from the ocean, he drank the ocean. So he's known as Nilakanta. He has a blue throat. So because of this sacrifice, this all gives rise to his greatness. So again, this mercy of compassion is fully exhibited by Srila Dvaitacharya, who is non-different than the eternal aspect of Shiva, Sadashiva, and Mahavishnu. So this person that all worlds emanate from the pores of his body as he sleeps. This person descended to this world some 500 years ago. And he was 52 years older than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was already preaching and already sharing Krishna consciousness in his community. He was a lead Brahmin in Shantipur, which is a place close to in Bengal. And his house was a place to come and dance and sing in kirtan. So he also had the close friendship with Haridas Thakur, who's a great saint, and Srila Vishvarup, who is Sri Chaitanya's older brother. And so they had these really intimate, incredible kirtans, kind of exactly what we're doing here, chanting, glorifying the Lord. These type of services they were engaged in, and preparing for the Lord to come. And I was hearing that the first words that came from his mouth were Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Yeah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya is the first words that came from his mouth. So Krishna expands as his brother, and when his brother is there to facilitate the pastimes of Krishna, and so in every incarnation, the Lord is coming with his entourage. So his brother, his brother is Srila Dvaitacharya, but in the spiritual world, he's Lord Balaram. So, and he's there to serve the Lord.
Is that Nityananda?
Nityananda is Sri Balaram. But ultimately, Dvaitacharya is an expansion from Balaram as well. So he comes as 5. It's pretty incredible. You know, the Lord, God is one, but he can come in diverse forms. That's an important truth. And you know, if you're ever challenged, if anybody challenges you, well, how are there many expansions of God? Say, how can you limit God? If he's all powerful, then why can't he expand himself? He can do that. He's known as Yogeshvara. He's the master of all mystics, so he can expand himself. So in this mood of service, Srila Dvaitacharya, he was older than the Lord. So when the Lord finally became fully engaged in the Sankirtan mission, he took initiation from Ishvara Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri is the guru of Sri Advaitacharya. So because he was elderly, and he was also the disciple of, Sri Chaitanya was a grand disciple of Madhavendra Puri, then in the sense of etiquette, Advaita Acharya was senior to him. But so Sri Chaitanya was always offering him respect. He was elder. Also, the Lord had very long arms, and so he would be touching the lotus feet of Srila Advaita Acharya. And Sri Advaita Acharya didn't like this, because he was in the mood of service, and he wanted to be subordinate to Sri Chaitanya, because he wanted to be in his natural role. So there's a particular scheme that he came up with where he was preaching Mayavad philosophy. Does everybody know what Mayavad philosophy is? Yeah. The Mayavad philosophy is basically God is all one. Ultimately, when God descends, it's in an illusory form, and at the end, everything is merged into Brahman. Okay, so there's no spiritual diverse reality we were discussing. Ultimately, everything merges. And so Advaita Acharya, he came up with a scheme to preach this Mayavad philosophy. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he descended specifically to give love of God to the whole world. So to inundate the world with love of God, that's the purpose for his descent. And so when he heard that Sri Advaita Acharya was preaching Mayavad philosophy, he didn't believe it. So finally, after he heard from multiple people, he came himself to hear. And on the Vyasasan, Sri Advaita Acharya is preaching this Mayavad philosophy. And Lord Chaitanya, seeing him, became extremely angry. And in seeing this, Sri Advaita Acharya, he started preaching more strongly this Mayavad philosophy. God is one, and he could sense the Lord's mood. And so as he continued, the Lord got so upset, he came and he slapped him. He said, "What are you doing?" And he pushed him off the Vyasasan. So when something happens to us, we feel angry or hurt or offended. But in this sense, in the spiritual sense, everything is opposite. So when this happened, Sri Advaita Acharya, this was the moment he was waiting for. He became blissful and happy, and he started dancing. He started dancing in ecstasy. He was waiting for this moment. He wanted to be subordinate to the Lord, and he wanted the Lord to chastise him. So in seeing this, Sri Chaitanya, he understood he had been tricked. And so they had different loving pastimes in this way. There was also a time, Sri Advaita Acharya, he wanted to have intimate association with him, because Sri Chaitanya was always surrounded by his devotees. So he came up with a plan, and he called the Lord to his house, and all the devotees come, because the Lord is always surrounded by his loving devotees. And there happened to be a great storm that came. And it was such a great storm that the devotees couldn't continue. But when the Lord walked, there was no rain falling. So the Lord just was able to walk straight to the house of Advaita Acharya. And him and his wife were cooking him incredible prasadam. So it's described that they're cooking all these opulent preparations. They're offering it to the Lord, and they're joking with one another. And so they get this intimate darshan and association with the Lord. And so they're feeding the Lord so much. The Lord said, how can I eat all this? They said, we know you. We know who you are. As Giriraj, you consume millions of offerings that the devotees offer. So why can't you accept these offerings? Go ahead, eat. So they kept them pushing him to eat more and more. And so these type of loving exchanges were going on. These are incomprehensible. That this is two expansions of the Lord, and they're having these funny, intimate relations. So this is one way we can make our life more colorful, is enter into this culture of the spiritual world. And there's so much variety, and there's so much amazing things, and we can only touch. We can barely touch on these topics, but the acharyas have given us so much. We can read these books Srila Prabhupada gave us, all these details of the spiritual world. We can celebrate. One time at a Rath Yatra festival, Srila Prabhupada was very happy about the festival because from his childhood he had done Rath Yatra, and this is a very loving exchange that happens between the Lord and the devotees, only done in India. So Prabhupada brought it outside of India, and the first Rath Yatra was in San Francisco. So Prabhupada told the devotees, he said, this is one festival, but we have actually 24 major festivals in the year, including like Ram Nomi, or Gaur Purnima is coming up next month. We have let's see here. So yeah, we have Janmashtami. We have so many festivals. So we have Lonitinaz. We have Madhavacharya Saturday. Balaram Shakti is going to speak. Festivals, and so as our community, opportunity to make our life more into a festival. And I think you've been to Mayapur, and you know, like in every day is a festival. They're celebrating something every day. And you go into the temple room for the morning program, and there's so many devotees, the morning program is like a festival. There's like hundreds of devotees, and all the chanting together is just totally amazing every single day. They have parades every week. They have pet elephants there. A big parade with 2 elephants, and they have the brahmacharis coming. They have turbans on their head, and they have all the sannyasis. They bring the deities out, and a huge parade of people, and they're doing kirtan around the city every Saturday. So as our community grows, we have the opportunity to make our life more colorful by following, again, understanding that the saintly people are our compass. They're our life, they're our soul, they're everything. The saintly people are revealing the spiritual world to us. They're opening this door up to us. And so we enter into that culture. There's some trend going on in the movement that we should also, kind of like Protestantism, we should kind of whitewash our practice, our movement, and make it more accessible for Americans. But as we go deeper into Krishna consciousness, yeah, in the beginning, dress isn't so important. These things aren't so important. But at some point, what is the mood of a devotee? They want to do everything to please the Lord. And that includes cultural items, right? Like, is there something about culture that we don't want to use to please the Lord? So these festivals, and actually by hearing, like we're hearing Prabhupada's Krishna book. Last time we spoke, we discussed Krishna book. You can see how the residents lived. We can really enter into this culture, this mood, and see how they lived, and this becomes prominent for us because the so-called dazzling attractions of this world ultimately will let us down. They'll let us down. I also wanted to share, we're doing a Lilamrita reading on Sundays. We're reading about Prabhupada's life together. And there was one amazing description, because Prabhupada was in New York, And he was on 26th 2nd Avenue. This is after the Bowery. The Bowery was basically one of the most degraded places on Earth. At that time, it was known and famous to be one of the most degraded places on the whole planet. Just the drugs, the homelessness, the crime, everything. So Prabhupada had moved to 26th 2nd Avenue, which wasn't too far away, but it was a little bit better area. But still, you have these buildings, big buildings. You have all the cars going by. You know, the noise pollution, the other pollutions in the air, the gray smog, the big ugly buildings. And so there were some recollections that were going on, that how when these devotees, when they met Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had a little apartment behind the back courtyard, and the devotees who were coming to his classes and were participating at that time, they would oftentimes just go right up and see Prabhupada. And so every morning they were going up and hearing classes from Prabhupada in his apartment. So they're all sitting with him. So this is some recollections on how New York changed in their eyes. So this is Keith. I used to walk along the Bowery and look for flowers for him. When there were no flowers, I would take a straw or some grass. I loved going there in the morning. Howard, I would walk very briskly over to Swamiji's, chanting Hare Krishna, feeling better than ever before. Miraculously, the Lower East Side no longer looked drab. The sidewalks and buildings seemed to sparkle. And in the early morning before the smog set in, the sky was red and golden. Chuck, I brought a few grapes and came to the door of the Swami. This was all new. Previously, I would always walk toward McDougal Street, towards Bohemia, aesthetic New York. And now I was walking to the Lower East Side, toward the business district, where there were no freaks, artists, or musicians, but simply straight buildings. And somehow, outside the carnival atmosphere, there was the richest attraction for the senses and the heart. This is Howard recollecting. I would sing all the way to the foyer, then ring the buzzer marked A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And the door would buzz and open, and I would walk through the hallway into the small patio and up to the small second-floor apartment, tiptoeing quietly so as not to wake up the neighbors. So you've heard of like rose-colored glasses? You heard that saying? So it's like you can be in the most beautiful place, but you may be feeling sadness or depression. But for these people, when they met Prabhupada, when he started to introduce them to the spiritual world and the spiritual culture, they started chanting. All of a sudden, New York took on a different look for them. They started thinking like, this life is beautiful. this street, this 26th 2nd Avenue with cars going down all day, the traffic, the whole thing, it's beautiful. And so they would happily walk over and see Srila Prabhupada and hear from him. And he created the spiritual world. So this described how the spiritual world expands. Like we have the eternal spiritual world, which a tiny fraction Mahavishnu lays, and the universe is emanating from his body. So this same spiritual world, the essence of the spiritual world, which is also colorful. And do you know that the supreme planet is in the shape of a lotus flower? That's how colorful Krishna is. So how beautiful the spiritual world is. So that same Goloka Vrindavan can manifest in each universe, in each planet. So Goloka Vrindavan manifests here on this world. We have a Vrindavan where Krishna appeared, this Boma Lila 5,000 years ago, and performed pastimes. We have literature, we have stories about his appearance. It's just incredible that we can actually get this close to the Lord. The Lord enables us to. So there's another way the Supreme One manifests, which is in the heart of a devotee. So the way that you can make your life colorful, more colorful than it already is to associate with the spiritual dimension more and more. Associate with saintly people more and more. Come to Krishna Cove. Look at the beautiful colors in Krishna Cove. Look at this incredible mural. This is a vision into the spiritual world. This Bala Gopinath, he painted this. This is my godbrother Bala Gopinath. He painted this mural. There's a window into the spiritual dimension. And so in our heart, we may be going around just doing our business every day, cleaning, working, going to school, going to work, spending time with family, we may be doing, but more and more in our heart becomes Vrindavan, right? So that's the goal. And we have so much to fully be absorbed in that. We have so many incredible audiobooks. We have Prabhupada's books on audio. We have a Vrindavan, we have a Bhaktivedanta Research Institute. Have you heard of that? And they're finding all these amazing texts from the Acharyas that had direct contact with the Lord. They're authorized representatives of the Lord. And they have these vivid descriptions of the Lord and his pastimes and realizations on who different personalities are. Like for instance, did you know that Krishna also wears tilak? Did you know that? And he never puts on his own tilak. His devotees always put on his tilak. So we put on our own tilak, but Krishna doesn't. Every morning, his cowherd friends or his mother, or sometimes the gopis will put on tilak for Krishna. And there are different varieties of tilak. You can learn about all these things. There's unlimited details. We have this incredible wealth, and then so many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who are bringing out these details for us, bringing out these incredible books, or giving classes, or sharing these things. Because ultimately, we're trying to share an eternal reality that's already existed and continues to exist, and we're simply trying to enter into that and understand that. And as far as imbibing the culture, like we realize Vrindavan in our heart, because this was also the mood of Sri Chaitanya, to fall in love with Radha and Krishna. So we manifest that Vrindavan in our heart, but we are in the Yuga Dharma for this age of Sri Harinam Sankirtan. So when we're trying to imbibe the culture into our life, really studying Lord Chaitanya and his pastimes helps us understand the culture of the Sankirtan mission, that we're in. How did these devotees associate with each other? How did they treat one another? How did they cook for one another? How did they dress? What did they recommend? What was important to them? Every year, the devotees would go to Jagannath Puri for the Rath Yatra. This is very important for the devotees and associates of Lord Chaitanya. It's very important. There's a festival called it's holy, but it's done in Orissa, Jagannath Puri. It's called Dola Yatra. You heard of that? Dola Yatra. So every year, around this time, Holi's coming up. Every year, the devotees they build these beautiful palanquins. Do you know what a palanquin is? It's like a little platform, or it's a little seat that you carry. Maybe it has two rods on the end and a platform in the middle. So they decorate these beautiful palanquins with flowers and a beautiful seat, and they place the deities Radha and Krishna on the palanquin. And they go in a big parade. This is a 7-day event. So they're doing kirtan, they're chanting like we were doing before this class. So they're chanting, and they're going to all the doors of the residents in the Orissa area, in this Jagannath Puri area, bringing the kirtan to everybody. And it's described that they're all working together to decorate and competing who can make this most beautiful decorations for this parade. So they'll go, and then on one particular day they celebrate Holi. And Holi, has any of you ever been to a Holi festival? You've been? Anybody not been? Okay, so we have different Holi festivals. We actually had one in Tucson last year. Sometimes we have one in Phoenix. And my first experience, actually before I moved in the temple, was in Spanish Fork, Utah. They have a gigantic temple there, and they do a huge Holi festival every year. And the students at BYU, and it's all Mormon country, thousands of them come. And they all join in and chanting and dancing and jumping. They have a big stage, and you have this cornstarch, and they dye the cornstarch And so everybody's throwing colors on one another, and they're doing kirtan. They do these big color throws. So they count down. They said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they all throw the colors in the air, and everybody's chanting, and it's just beautiful. So this originates in the spiritual world. These were loving pastimes in the spiritual world between Radha and Krishna. This is pastimes that they have on the Doli Yatra parade. And do any of you know what Holi is celebrating? What that event? There's a particular pastime it's relating to. Does anybody know? Yeah.
So, like Prahlad's dad, like Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill Prahlad
Yeah.
by putting on fire so that his sister, Hiranyakashipu's sister, was given that benediction that she will not get burned in the fire. So she takes the baby, like the kid Prahlad with her in that big fire. But actually, the safe and the Hiranyakashipu's sister was named Holika.
Right.
It's killed. So on her name, like it's celebrated as Holi. That's what I have.
Yeah, there's a child devotee named Prahlad in Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was a son of a great demon, and his dad wanted him to become a demon like him, so he put him into school to learn diplomacy. And whenever he would question his son, "What did you learn?" He would talk about Krishna consciousness. He talked about bhakti yoga. He described the 9 processes of devotion. "Oh, my dear son, what have you learned?" He expected him to say, "I learned how to establish my ranks and how to discipline those disobedient and in the country and these type of things." But Prahlad said, "My dear father, today I learned Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dastyam, Sakyam, Atmanam, Vivadam." These are the 9 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, deity worship. And Hiranyakashipu was a sworn enemy of Vishnu because Vishnu had killed his brother Hiranyaksha. And so he was extremely angry about this. He's like, "My son, he's becoming a devotee of Vishnu. This is terrible." So then he devised different ways to torture and kill Prahlad. And because of the protection of the Lord, none of them worked. And so, as Prabhu was saying, his sister Holika, she had a benediction. She had some mystic potency that was given to her that she was able to enter fire and not be burned. And so his brother commissioned her. He said, "You take Prahlad in the fire to kill him. You won't be burned, but he will." So as she entered into the fire, and she was burned and he wasn't. So the opposite happened. And so the Lord protected his devotees. The Lord protects his devotees. So again, similar to Diwali is when Lord Ram killed Ravana, the great demon Ravana. So similarly, Holi is a celebration of good over evil, a celebration of the Lord protecting his devotees and saving his devotees. So these are some of the beautiful festivals that we celebrate. And do any of you not have a nectar of devotion? You don't have? Right now? You don't have one? You don't think you have one? Okay. Do you have one? Okay. Shinya, you have one? You don't? Okay. So if you can tell me one way to make your life more colorful, I'll give you a nectar of devotion from this class. How can you make your life more colorful?
Yeah.
But you already have one, right? Yeah, that's the essence is chanting. And actually, the spiritual world, through this hearing process, this reading process, and then the Yuga Dharma chanting, we chant the sacred name of the Lord. The spiritual world will be revealed from within. And it's said throughout the scriptures, there's no other way. Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam. There's no other way than chanting the holy name of the Lord. So this is repeated throughout the scriptures. So the spiritual world manifesting in our heart, we make our life full in color, vivid in color. Okay, so does anybody else have? The you 5 who don't have nectar devotion, tell me one way to make your life more colorful.
Thank you, Krishna. Bodhisattva you're forefront.
That's perfect. That's the essence. Always remember Krishna, never forget. That's what Krishna is instructing us in Bhagavad Gita. Yes.
Following the saints, you were saying earlier.
Absolutely. The saints are our only real friends. Like people that are free from all vice, who are givers, who know how to love, who aren't controlled by their senses, who don't have ill motives. These are our real friends. Everyone else will let us down in some sense. Thank you. Sunil? What kind of service to who? Krishna conscious seva? Yeah, because if you're in the association of devotees, then you want to perform service. And in performing service, your heart becomes purified. Your heart becomes purified. The spiritual world Krishna is going to reveal himself in our hearts. And again, in full color, what the spiritual world revealed to us. So, am I missing? I'm missing. Okay.
I'm just started reading the Gita, so.
Okay. Reading the Gita. That's a good answer. Reading the Gita. I was going to say, actually, best to read the Gita before you read Nectar of Devotion. So I'll give you Nectar of Devotion, but it's recommended to read the Bhagavad Gita first. Because you want to understand Krishna's position, and you want to understand what he's asking from us. You also want to understand the non-sectarian nature of this tradition. That God is very big. God is unlimited. God has no restriction. We think of God and maybe he has restrictions, but he doesn't have any restrictions. But he has a certain nature. We learn about his nature. What is that nature? Ultimately, it's one of love. Ultimately, he's wanting to have these dynamic, real, loving exchanges with the living entities, and that's what he's about ultimately. So that's some of the key points that Krishna's teaching about Gita and Srila Prabhupada is describing. So it's a very famous text. It's known worldwide. It's kind of like if you ever got a car, and then once you get that car, you start seeing that car all over the street. So once you start becoming Krishna conscious, you start seeing Krishna everywhere. Krishna is actually very popular. Like if you look around, you see Buddhas everywhere. That's Krishna. Buddha's an expansion of Krishna. So you start seeing 108 everywhere. Sometimes I see 108. I've been seeing 108 a lot lately. I think something auspicious happening. Start seeing 108 is a sacred number. But you start seeing Krishna through your daily life, and Krishna is also telling us, like I said, I'm flower-bearing spring. Of mountains I am Meru. I'm the strength of the strong. If you see someone really strong, think, oh, that comes from Krishna, right? I'm the intelligence of the intelligent. So you think, oh, these scientists who are decrying God, they got their intelligence from Krishna. So it's kind of ironic, right? So do we have any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you so much. It's really good.
I don't know.
Would you like a drink of water?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So you mentioned Advaitacharya's preaching of Mayavad philosophy, and I just wanted to share a quick point. So, researching a little bit for Madhvacharya's experience day talk. And one of the reasons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took initiation in this lineage, one of the principles that Madhvacharya was especially strong in was establishing that the supreme absolute truth is a person, is Krishna. And so more than any other lineage, he very soundly refuted Mayavad philosophy. And this one point was brought up that what Mayavad is saying is Maya means illusion. Vada is thought that God is impersonal, just energy, if you will. And as you're saying, when he appears, he takes on personhood that is actually made of Maya. And so the implication of that is that the name, the form, the qualities, the activities of God are all Maya, and therefore they're all temporary. They're subject to the same material implications that our bodies are, and therefore the name of God is not eternal, it's temporary. It's not an eternally existing entity, if you will. It's not something that we can actually derive spiritual advancement, what speak of a spiritual body from. And then, of course, the other ramification of that is that personality itself is illusory, and therefore love itself is illusory, and that there's, it just completely eliminates any interaction with reality itself, any kind of development of love, and therefore it's the most diametrically opposed thing to life, is this idea that it's just not real. And so therefore Chaitanya was incredibly upset with him. So it's something that we should understand very well. And the other thing I wanted to share along with that was just that we see this Mayavad influence all over the world. So many paths that it's like this influence has spread quite a lot, but there is no understanding of the holy name or the form of God, as you're saying, the iconoclasts. They're like, let's just get rid of forms because that's all Maya, that's all illusion. Whatever's real, it's just, can't say anything about it. So yeah, it's like Renaissance of understanding of there is a name of God and it's eternal, and you can take shelter of that and you can associate with that. And the personalities that have brought the name into their hearts, they are walking embodiments of pure love, and that's what I'm doing. So.
Thank you. Yeah, Prabhupada said many times that variety is the mother of enjoyment. If you don't have variety, if you don't have relationships, then where's the life, right? If all there is peace, then what's the point of all this anyway? There's got to be a purpose to the variety in the relationships. So yeah, thank you very much. It's one of the key understandings that must be there for us to start developing something real in relationship to the Lord. Because the idea of liberation is still one of self-interest. There's different types of liberation, but this is one thing that Sri Chaitanya taught, that we give up even desire for liberation for the sake of love. Right? We take on sacrifice for love. We're talking about that. I wanted to mention, because did you give all the devotees their nectar of devotions? Okay, let's distribute. So this book is a complete science of Bhakti Yoga, and so it gets into some of the really intricate details of like who a devotee is, what qualities do they exhibit, who is the Lord, and what are the qualities of the Lord, and then there's one particular chapter called Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. That's chapter 26, and it talks about the different paraphernalia in relationship to the Lord and how they give us remembrance of Krishna. So actually, I almost forgot, but I wrote a short poem for this class, and this is kind of to help us enter into this vision of the spiritual world of Sri Vrindavan, and to understand this in a very personal way. So this will hopefully inspire you to want to read this book. So.
The book is in Nectar.
What's that?
The book of Nectar.
Right. You have one, right? Okay. Dear Krishna, accept this spring bouquet. Don't you run away. The forest is calling. May we also come and play? As your flower garland cascades, Vrindavan residents gaze. Lifting your flute to your lips, sweetness flows like waves. Fruit is offered by the trees, honey by the bees. Flowers send their sweet aroma to you through the breeze. Birds welcome you by song, frogs croak in the pond. Recognizing their language, sometimes you sing along. O protector of the cows, please stay with us now. What's so great there anyhow? We wish this day would never end. Being with our dearest kin, serving the beautiful bluish boy in the groves of Vrindavan. It was ultimately very sweet, simple. In it, there's an innocence, childlike innocence that we carry with us. And maybe some of your best memories were when you were a child and you had some moments playing with your friends or your siblings. I know I have some memories like that I grew up some of the time in Ohio, and there was a big backyard, and some of those early memories just running around the yard or playing in the forest, those type of things. So thank you very much. So this ultimately, like, this is something that gives joy to our heart. This, again, coming in like the innocence of a child, entering into this state of just sweet, pure, and genuine loving exchanges. Forgetting about all the complications that we go through to try to gain more, to enjoy more, and to overcome and to rise above and to elevate in our field and this type of thing. No, just coming back to the heart's nature of simple loving exchanges. So that's what the Krishna consciousness philosophy is about in essence. So okay.
So did you
Yes.
hear the frogs croaking in the morning of Ohio?
we did well. I think more in South Carolina. Yeah, I used to go and run in the creeks in South Carolina.
I used to hear a lot during the rainy season back in the park.
Yeah, in Nepal you have a lot of frogs.
The night would be like whole musical night, like they'll sing all night long.
They'll sing all night long.
And it's like we used to have a big paddy field, and then it used to be like waterlogged. And like whole night, kind of maybe thousands, not less, but more than thousands or millions of frogs would be singing all night.
Did you have to put earplugs in to get some sleep?
But it was like very nice musical. I mean, it was not right in my house. It was like maybe 500 feet away, in the radius of like 500 feet or so.
Mm-hmm.
Just super nice.
That's sweet.
And other thing I wanted to ask, like, do you know about the story how Prahlad like got that devotional attitude? Like, I heard that he heard somehow when his mom was pregnant. I mean, when he was in the womb, Lord Narada about the Vishnu, Narada Muni told that. But how did Hiranyakasipu let her like listen those things from Narada Muni? Like, that is like something I wanted to know.
Yeah, I try to remember the details. Maybe some of you can help, but I think there was some battle going on or something where Hiranyakashipu, she needed some shelter.
Yeah, because I just read this. The Hiranyakashipu went to do austerities to gain power, and so the demigods took advantage of his absence and ransacked his whole HQ.
That's right, because they were thinking like they're thinking the demons are getting too powerful, right? They were thinking that.
Yeah, totally.
So the demigods came and
Now's our chance.
They take advantage of this opportunity.
Okay,
So then, yeah, they arrested his wife, and their plan was to kill the baby once he was born. They figured, we can't have a brother, this guy running around. But then Narad Muni came and said, no. There's no danger from him. He's a devotee, so let me, give shelter to this woman. He invited her to his ashram until her husband came back from his austerities.
That's right. Because at first they're thinking this is a baby of a great demon. So I don't know if we should protect this one. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Sachi,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask, or like, can you talk about why, if God's omniscient, like why he pretends to not be, like how, like he probably knew like the real intent of like Madhava when he was talking about the Mayavad philosophy, but then like he like pretends that he doesn't. I'm just like wondering, like, you could talk about that.
Sure, yeah, because the Lord, in a sense, we can understand the Lord by understanding our own emotions and feelings and experience. So the Lord wants to get lost in the moment. In a sense. Yeah, like, you ever got really into something, maybe it was like a great movie, or you just forget everything else. So this is the Lord's mode of operating in the form of Leela in his pastimes. He doesn't want to remember his God sometimes. Sometimes he doesn't want other people to remember his God. For the sake of entering into the moment and being fully there and being experiencing that pastime. So he's joking with the Dvaitacharya, they're going having this exchange. He's thinking sometimes the Dvaitacharya is my senior. He's not thinking, oh, this is Mahavishnu lying on the causal ocean. He purposefully, there's a type of illusion called yoga maya. He purposely enters into that so he can be in the moment and enjoy pastime.
So he purposely like forgets sometimes so he can have like a deeper like
Everybody
relationship.
got a point?
Exactly.
Interesting.
More casual, more casual. And just on reference.
Exactly. He wants something very sweet, something loving, and he wants to be when he's in the mood of Lord Chaitanya, he's thinking I'm a devotee of Krishna. He's not thinking I'm the supreme Godhead. It's kind of like they say actors sometimes get into the roles and they forget who they are. Krishna likes to do that. For the sake of loving exchange. Now loving exchanges are real. They're real. But he purposefully forgets his position as God. Yes.
You know, if I may add on to that. Thank you. If I may add on to that, from a working out perspective, I believe if without any sort of opposition, there's no room for growth. There has to be, in my own opinion, some type of opposing pressure in order for there to be growth. So I would add on to Krishna acting like he's not there at times for the sake of, or the reason that he does that, in my own opinion, would be for the sake of growth for his devotees. Because if there isn't any, like going to the gym, for instance, you know, in order for you to go from being able to lift a 20-pound dumbbell to a 100-pound dumbbell, you know, you obviously have to go through that opposition. And I believe opposition brings us closer to God or Krishna. It brings us closer to that higher vibrational frequency. But without opposition, we'll never grow closer to Krishna. So there has to be conflict, or there has to be discord. There has to be some sort of affliction. You know, there can't be yin without yang. You know, in order for there to be like that middle, there has to be some type of opposition.
Yeah, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am adventure. And so like, you know, if it's always smooth sailing, then Krishna can't necessarily always taste our love. So that's the one he brings out. Sometimes he wants to test and see how much does this devotee love me. So there'll be some pressures, right? Some of that resistance. Be some difficulties on the path. Actually said that a saintly person, when you take to that path, there's going to be difficulties. There's thorns on the path of a saintly person. He said that in scripture. So it's not necessarily in this world, in this body, the path of least resistance. Generally, we want to go the path of least resistance, right? But sometimes it's difficult because you're doing something different, right? Society's going in one direction, and you're going the complete opposite direction. You're taking the spiritual life. You're saying, like, everything that you stand for, your dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are like materialistic goals. I'm going to do some religiosity so I can get money, so I can enjoy my senses, and then I become liberated. Okay, so that's the mode that everybody's operating on, is dharma artha kama moksha. And so you're saying I'm stepping outside of that, and I want to start to do my activities simply in relation to pleasing the Lord. So there's some resistance. Like our senses are fighting back, our mind's fighting back. It's actually saying we should be doing something different. But instead of doing, we actually become liberated from being enslaved to what society is saying, what our mind or our senses is saying. We become free from those shackles, and we actually begin to taste the spiritual bliss that we're always longing for. So yeah, Krishna wants to see, do you really want me? You know, is this really what you want? Because you can go enjoy Maya anytime. That's there for you. You want to do that, you can do that. And I'm going to let you. I'm not going to force you to love me. So that resistance is there in love, right? Like it's free will, and sometimes it's difficult. You know, it's always admirable when people stay in a relationship for a long time. A friendship, any type of relationship. You know? Even nowadays, sometimes like even parents and their children don't get along. You know, so being able to maintain a relationship, you got to get through some difficult things. There's resistance there. So yeah, that was a nice realization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
One of the things you talked about was nice. I appreciated it. Like the fact that you talked a lot about Chaitanya Charitamrita and just that Lord Chaitanya's culture, and that if we just hear those pastimes and we read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it just helps so much in the way we deal with each other. I know that so many things that I struggle with in this movement were resolved by hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita, because I understood how the spiritual cult, what's it really supposed to look like. And this is such a powerful thing to hear how, this is really an expansion. It makes you realize that this is really an expansion of what was going on at Sri Chaitanya Prabhu's time. And this is just the same thing going on. And we're in that, and reading it gives you that transcendental vision. So it's just encouraging to everybody to somehow or another read the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Because that's what we're.
It's the greatest book of all
That's what
time.
we're aspiring for. We're wanting to enter into that, right? We're like in training. We want to enter into the spiritual world, and this is the Lord's pastime. We're given all these tools that we can really fully understand and take these to be part of our life. Like it's the opposite of the spiritual world, right? In the spiritual world, in the material world, like you would never want somebody to chastise you so you become their subordinate. Have you ever heard of that before? Isn't that a foreign concept? Has anybody ever heard of that before?
Oh, there is. In real loving relationship, there is. Like I was recently chastised by someone who loves me about only getting 2 hours of sleep, one night, and driving for a long time. Yeah, but not in the sense of like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Like there's someone who cares about you, so thank you. So it felt really good. It's like, wow, this person really cares about me.
And real lovers, their ego has to step to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I wanted to say something about the Maya body thing. My understanding of it is, so like you'll meet people that aren't into Krishna consciousness, or they're not into Christ, or not into a relationship with God, any one of God's forms. And so they'll just say love, just love everybody. Let's all love each other, love everybody. And it's very tempting to go there because, that is the ultimate. We want to love everybody. But I think what we find out is that until we really have a personal relationship with God, loving other people is not as easy as we think. We really, it's not, we get into difficulties and we don't know how to handle them because we don't have somewhere to go in that moment of not being able to handle it, and call on God and have His support, and then go back and have it be better. You think that's kind of the fundamental of Mayavadi?
Yeah, and the essence of it is that we're relating on a temporal platform. So on the spiritual platform, we're connecting soul to soul, and the soul is covered. So then there's even a false ego that's going to get in the way for genuine connection. So what I was thinking too is, and then I wanted to mention is, part of making our life spiritual, and again bringing the spiritual world into our heart, is the encounters we have. Try to make them spiritual. Like people that don't know about Krishna, for those people, we can give them Krishna. You know, I may meet somebody on the street and they know nothing about Krishna. I might have to do some business with them. I might, in the grocery line, I might have to check out. I might have to make small talk. Prabhupada would often make small talk. He would be personal and loving. And sometimes people say hello to Prabhupada. Prabhupada would say hello. The more they always thought, why is he not saying Hare Krishna? He would try to meet people where they were and be personal and cordial and respectful, and then always thinking, how can I give this person Krishna? So some of Prabhupada's books. That's a way to really spiritualize relationships with people you meet. Even if you can't give them a book right away, you're thinking, at some point I'm going to give them one of Prabhupada's books. At some point, maybe they'll ask me a spiritual question. You got something to answer?
That was another thing that they mentioned in this class, that Mayavadis never develop an attachment for a personality. So yeah, that was such a good point, Mary Sachi. Any personality of Godhead, just the fact that there's a person that your spiritual life means attachment to a personality. Otherwise, there's no way to deal with personal conflicts, or which means love. There's no way to really love.
It's like running away from problems.
I feel like a lot of the times it's like, when you get around those who have very little spiritual understanding, they're mostly just like hiding their head in the sand type. That's kind of what they do when they're impersonalists. They say, oh, it's God's will. And they try to deny their emotions and really depersonalize themselves. And in that way, it's kind of like a child saying to Maya, saying to the illusory energy, no, I'm not. You're not here. You're not here. You're not here. And rather than becoming enlightened or becoming actually spiritually advanced and mature, they're really just immature, and they're always in a character. I've been around some serious Mayavadi swamis, and it's like character. It's not actually any spiritual realization. It's kind of mental character, and then they don't want to leave their character. So in that way, it feels very disingenuous and very dishonest, and it's not like this, not this vibe for sure.
So one thing I wanted to mention about that is the way that we can reach the Mayavad community is by just being irresistibly attractive. This was the Lord Chaitanya's method of bringing the Mayavad community to Krishna consciousness. This was one of his greatest preaching feats, because Mayavad was prominent in the renouncement. Have a good night. Hare Krishna. In the cultural spiritual community, Mayavad was prominent. So this is the main reason Sri Chaitanya took sannyas. And the way that he was able to attract them was not defeating them and not arguing it. It was just that he was so beautiful and attractive, and he was so humble, and he's so loving in his behavior. So they just had to inquire, like, who are you? What is this? And then he had the opportunity to preach to them. And because it was just so wonderful, they accepted. So in one sense, we can become such a dynamic movement. You see these like beautiful harmonies going on like in Europe. You see that we're talking about these festivals, these beautiful festivals. They just become irresistibly attractive, right? And so the Mayavad, we have one guy here who wears like a third eye on his head. He'll take off At some point, they'll take off the eye and they'll just come join the kirtan. That's what we're trying to facilitate. We're trying to facilitate that so they can give up this false ego, this false idea, and come into the sacred foundation.
Can you imagine that guy? I have to ask a question because I don't know if you know there was an incident that happened with him a few months back.
Is that, should we talk about it?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But like, you know, like sometimes like if people are really being offensive and stuff, like how do you deal with it? Sometimes you have to like ask them to leave or something like that. Because like, you really, I know if people are really offensive or like they're doing things that are like, highly offensive toward the devotees or toward God. And so, in that case, how do you deal with that? Like we see also that Lord Chaitanya had a kind of like in one sense, he had a severe side. I could describe that, he would like, they told that, when his students were telling him not to chant the names of the gopis, he started to, become very angry at them. And
they weren't facilitating his loving ecstasy. They didn't understand.
So, like, how are we to deal with, situations like that? Like sometimes, even like our spiritual master sometimes says that you have to be really soft, but at the same time, you have to manifest some type of, protective mood sometimes for the devotees, for the Lord, for the philosophy. How do you?
Well, the way that I understand is we want to protect the innocent and the new people who haven't fully developed faith in Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, sometimes we have to be fiery for the sake of protecting. Like for instance, if we're in a sangha like this, we have a Mayavad, and they start telling the whole group Mayavad philosophy, we might have newer people, and they're taking this to be something that they should consider. So in that case, we have to philosophically defeat them. But generally speaking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very tolerant. Like, how long did you hear from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? 7 days. 7 days straight. He heard Mayavad philosophy without speaking a word for 7 days straight. He just sat there. Think about that tolerance. This is painful for him to hear. Very tolerant. Generally, he was tolerant. That's how he won them over. Yeah. But for the sake of protection, like for instance, like in general, we don't recommend anybody to go hear from Mayavad. That can destroy your spiritual. If you hear the chanting of Hare Krishna from Mayavad, it's contaminated. You hear the chanting from atheists, it's contaminated. So we don't want to hear vibration from somebody who doesn't have any faith in Krishna, and doesn't develop any sense of bhakti for Krishna, love for Krishna. We don't want to hear because that vibration isn't pure. It's taking something sacred and actually committing an offense to the sanctity of that. So, not to get too heavy. I don't know if the camera's still on.
Like using the Lord's name in vain kind of thing.
Right, exactly. It's very special. Like to the devotees, it's something very wonderful. You take that and you use it to make money for commercial purposes.
I did have one time have this guy say to me in a group, small group, something, Krishna, and I felt it was he just wanted my attention. He just used the name Krishna to get my attention. And I was like, no. You're not really interested in Krishna, you're interested in me, giving you attention.
The thing is that they say they make some advancement, but if we hear it, we can They're still making advancements.
Okay.
You still encourage them to chant, because the first stage of chanting is offensive. You still encourage them to chant, but we don't want to hear it. There's a lot of things to consider, but in general, we want to hear from people that have faith and love for Krishna. The room is thinning out.
We'll close out the show right now.